Despite this clear verdict, why are some Democrats still attempting to challenge it? The Supreme Court has delivered a decisive 8-1 decision that puts a halt to bureaucratic expansion and reaffirms the president's authority to streamline federal agencies.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
Fox News reports that Jonathan Turley has sternly warned that the Supreme Court's ruling could not be clearer. Tonight, consider this. Since when has compliance with the Supreme Court become optional? The court's decisive 8-1 decision to uphold President Trump's authority to streamline bloated federal agencies is far from a mere legal formality. It's a stark rebuke of the continuous obstruction by the left. Ignoring the highest court in the land poses a serious question. What remains of our democracy? Prepare yourselves.
I'm glad to hear it, because both of these disgraceful individuals turned against our Constitution and our country, and I'm sure they did, in fact, lie to Congress, and it's up to the Department of Justice to investigate that and to prosecute them if they did.
This is an assault on the Constitution and the trust Americans have in their government. Evidence suggests a troubling pattern. Brennan's push to include the discredited Steele dossier in the intelligence evaluation despite professional objections, and Comey's approval of surveillance warrants using information known to be unreliable. To restore trust in our institutions, Republicans must stand strong against efforts to undermine the Constitution. We are at a critical juncture for the rule of law and constitutional governance in the United States. When top officials in our intelligence agencies tasked with protecting our democracy are accused of lying to Congress and shaping public perceptions, it goes beyond mere political scandal. If proven, these actions constitute a betrayal of public trust and a violation of our foundational principles. This issue goes beyond partisanship. It's about restoring accountability and ensuring that no one, no matter their position or political ties, is above the law. Resistance to this clear ruling by some progressive activists and Democratic politicians only further undermines public trust in our institutions and threatens the balance of powers essential to our government system. The American people deserve a government that is accountable, transparent, and committed to upholding the rule of law, regardless of whose interests it may challenge. The Department of Justice must thoroughly investigate these allegations and, if appropriate, prosecute to the fullest extent of the law. The investigations into John Brennan and James Comey are long overdue. These aren't just oversights. They indicate a concerted effort to undermine a duly elected president and misuse federal agencies for political purposes. Also, the Supreme Court's recent decision affirming the president's authority to reorganize the federal workforce underscores the executive power granted by the Constitution. Under new leadership, the Department of Justice is prioritizing fairness, integrity, and the protection of taxpayers.
What we have seen is corruption at the highest levels against President Trump. The deep state threw everything at him to prevent him from coming back to this big, beautiful White House behind me. And he prevailed, and the truth must come out. And this administration is totally committed to transparency and to justice and to accountability. And we must have a rule of law in this country. We can't be a nation without law and order. That's what the president believes in, and I'm glad to see the Department of Justice is opening up this investigation.
Progressive activists and some Democratic politicians who attempt to undermine this decision are not merely disagreeing with policy, but are challenging the legitimacy of the court and the foundational structure of our Constitution. The ongoing criminal investigations into former intelligence officials mark a critical reckoning for years of unchecked power within federal agencies. As the election cycle intensifies, issues of justice, law, and transparency are becoming more critical. In stark contrast, the current administration champions transparency, accountability, and adherence to the rule of law, while the opposition appears to maintain a status quo that favors entrenched interests over national well-being. Also, this situation is part of a broader trend where Democrats have sought to increase the power of unelected officials and international entities, often compromising American sovereignty. These probes are essential in restoring public trust and holding those accountable who misuse government power for political purposes. The way forward is clear. Uphold the rule of law, respect the Constitution, and ensure the government serves the people, not the other way around. Policy shifts resulting from these investigations, and the Supreme Court's ruling could significantly transform the federal government, leading to a more efficient, accountable bureaucracy committed to eradicating corruption. With a decisive majority, the justices underscore the president's duty and authority to streamline the federal workforce, reduce waste, and ensure agency responsiveness to the public rather than to insulated political interests. The partisan divide is evident, with Republicans advocating for constitutional principles and Democrats increasingly isolated in their resistance to judicial and executive oversight. For too long, some bureaucrats have wielded their authority to pursue partisan agendas rather than serving the American populace. Their reluctance to accept judicial rulings and their continual legal challenges have exacerbated public distrust and division. The American public is paying close attention, eager for answers and substantive reform.
But real quickly, what does it tell you that, obviously the court is out of session, but they decided to weigh in on this, kind of sending another message about these lower court injunctions?
For instance, Justice Jackson's dissent warns of unchecked executive power, but Fox often frames this as mere obstructionism rather than engaging with the substance of her concerns. By acting now, the justices underscore that nationwide injunctions by activist judges should not stall or obstruct constitutionally grounded executive actions. The inclusion of legal experts like Jonathan Turley provides valuable context, particularly in explaining how this ruling fits into the broader judicial trend of curbing universal injunctions and reinforcing executive prerogatives. The Supreme Court's decision to intervene while technically out of session sends a strong signal about its serious view of the ongoing lower court injunctions against executive authority. Fox's coverage could improve by presenting a fuller spectrum of legal perspectives, including dissenting views. The American public is watching, expecting their leaders and the courts to uphold the rule of law, not bend it for political convenience. Fox News' coverage has effectively highlighted the constitutional stakes and the implications for the balance of power in Washington. Those who defy clear constitutional mandates risk further eroding public trust in our institutions. Overall, Fox's coverage aptly portrays this as a critical moment for constitutional government, highlighting persistent efforts by Democrats and their bureaucratic allies to resist legitimate executive authority. Visually, Fox excels with graphics and split screens that juxtapose the Supreme Court's decision with reactions from lawmakers and union leaders, helping viewers understand the immediate impact on federal agencies and broader implications for government accountability. The network has accurately presented the key points of the Supreme Court's 8-1 ruling, emphasizing that the administration is likely to succeed on the merits of its executive order aimed at reducing federal workforce inefficiencies.
Obviously, there's a lot that is sort of unusual and probably a little bit uncomfortable about this. But when you go back and you look at what Brennan and Comey did in 2015, 2016, back before when President Trump was running the first time, it's kind of shocking the actions they took. Perhaps with the direction of the Obama administration. We don't entirely know all of the details about that. But what they did to take the U.S. investigative intelligence services and turn it against the administration's main political opponent.
Well, Charlie, I think we left that comfort zone about 9 years ago.
When federal agencies are misused for partisan purposes, as suggested by the actions of Brennan and Comey, it creates more than a crisis of trust. It poses a direct threat to the stability and predictability on which American businesses and households rely. The Supreme Court's firm stance against judicial overreach and in support of executive authority is a victory for constitutional order and for every American who values limited government. Investors and entrepreneurs depend on a level playing field and adherence to the rule of law. The Supreme Court's decision to uphold the executive order on federal workforce reductions marks a crucial step toward restoring fiscal responsibility in Washington. As these investigations and reforms progress, it is crucial to focus on their real-world impact, a government that is more accountable, efficient, and responsive to the people it serves. The contrast is stark. Whereas the previous administration expanded the administrative state and catered to the interests of unelected officials and global institutions, the current approach emphasizes restoring American sovereignty and prioritizing the needs of citizens over partisan or international agendas. These significant reductions are not merely about cost-cutting. They aim to reallocate resources more effectively, streamline government functions, and shift power back to the people rather than leaving it in the hands of unelected officials. Over the years, federal bureaucracy has expanded excessively, using taxpayer money with minimal accountability. Manipulation of intelligence services for political advantage introduces uncertainty into the markets and hampers economic growth. The financial and economic implications of these investigations and the Supreme Court's ruling are profound, extending well beyond the political sphere. Small businesses, in particular, will benefit from a government that interferes less and focuses more on its primary duties instead of engaging in private sector meddling or political retribution. Meanwhile, entrenched interests that have thrived on unchecked bureaucratic expansion and are often aligned with previous administrations are now under pressure as their influence diminishes. For ordinary Americans, these reforms translate into more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. A more efficient government alleviates the need for higher taxes and helps control inflation. This is just the tip of the iceberg. The Supreme Court has delivered a clear, decisive verdict that aligns with our Constitution's mandates. Perhaps the real danger lies not in the decision itself, but in the refusal of some to accept it. Today, President Trump's administration shows a commendable respect for the rule of law and upholds American sovereignty. The previous administration under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris often disregarded the law to suit their purposes, which eroded trust in our republic's foundations. Allowing activist politicians or global interests to influence our courts could undermine what remains of our democracy. What do you think? Give us your thoughts below, plus don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be back with more soon.